And so today I'm very happy to be in conversation with one of our lovely course graduates. I'm here today with Eva Sacchi, and she is a yoga teacher based in Brighton and was one of the very first people on the Yoga for Cancer teacher training courses. So she's practicing and teaching in Brighton, been doing the Yoga for Cancer for 3 years now, and also teaches Hatha Flow and other classes in Brighton, and also works rather interestingly as an Italian English interpreter. So welcome, Eva. Lovely to
Hi,
meet
Jenny.
you.
Nice to meet you too again. Nice to see you again.
Lovely. So yeah, you were one of the first people to do the training, and we were still in and out of lockdown at the time, weren't we? Uh,
Yeah.
so what was it that brought you to the course in the first place?
Yeah, it seems such a long time ago. It's not 3 years, it's really not that long, but I suppose it was thankful to the pandemic that we did have the opportunity to do the course online, which was definitely a plus in that situation to be able to access the course because sometimes it's difficult to get to places or it's expensive. So that was made it accessible. But yeah, what brought me to the course was because I was practicing yoga before and I did do my teacher training in 2018, but I had a previous breast cancer diagnosis, and I found that yoga, even though I never went to a specific yoga for cancer class, I found yoga incredibly helpful in my recovery, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. And really kind of changed completely my trajectory in life. And that's why I trained as a yoga teacher. And then I thought, well, if I can specify my teaching for supporting cancer patients, then even better, because I think there is a need for it. And so when I found your course, I thought that was brilliant because there wasn't, and I don't know if there are at the moment, a lot of resources out there for someone who wants to specialize.
No, absolutely. And I think yeah, I felt the need to start doing courses because I was just becoming so aware of how prevalent cancer is generally in our society, and having a chat with a friend who and I was kind of saying, it's like, oh, I wish there were more classes like this, and I wish there were more teachers offering. um and yeah, she's made the suggestion to me. It's like, well, you've been doing this for years. You should be training people. So I'm glad you found what you were looking for. And it was certainly lovely for me having you on the course, and the insights that you bring through your own experience. How was it for you being on the course and it being something that was both personal and professional?
I think what it really helped me to do was to realize that um, despite having your own personal experience, you're still a teacher, you're still a professional. So keeping those boundaries that
Mm,
we talked about in the course is and developing skills to keep those boundaries where you're both compassionate and listening, but also not oversharing and not crossing over where you give advice in areas where which are not yours
mm,
to do really. I found that really helpful as part of the course. It was definitely a whole module about it, about skills and boundaries, and just the general kind of understanding cancer, because as a patient, you don't necessarily understand all the ins and outs. You have your own little experience, but it was good to have a broader picture, and also accessing lots of or the push to go and access resources and put together a packet that you can then offer to your
mm,
students was also helpful in kind of zooming out a little bit from that very individual and maybe sometimes restrictive experience.
mm,
So it was definitely interesting. And And also realizing that as cancer patients, we are all very different. So despite having this diagnosis, which is a big umbrella, there's so many different effects of the treatments and the disease itself. So someone might be lucky and not ever needing to do any adjustments or modifications in their postures, but someone else might develop, something after treatment which limits their ability to move or breathe. And so take all of that into consideration was also very, very interesting and important.
Yeah, and it's you've raised so many important points there, but I think yeah, I suppose one of the things that stood out was the recognizing both the benefits and the limits of your own experience. That yes, it absolutely gives you insight having walked that path, but everyone's experience is so individual, and there's so many different types of cancer and different treatments and different reactions to treatments, and that temptation to feel like because you've lived that experience that it's like, oh well, I know what it's like being a cancer patient, so therefore I can
Yes,
support cancer patients. So yeah, just being able to pull out the bits that are relevant to everybody, and then realizing what were the bits that were personal to you and might not apply to somebody else is really skillful.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think also when we've had an experience, we're more likely to want to advise. You think, oh, I know what it's like, I've been there, you should do this. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's very easy to do in a very well-meant way. But like you say, it is actually stepping outside the boundaries of what our role is as a yoga teacher.
yeah, yeah. That can be really, really challenging because, as you say, it is well-meaning. You do want to help, but unless there's certain things you can't advise on. It's just
Mm,
not your job. It's not part of what you're meant to be teaching. So that can be tough. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And how was the experience being in a group, and also at times, I guess your personal stuff did come up in conversation. Did that sort of feel like a comfortable space for you to be?
Yeah. I mean, I found generally people who take these trainings are people, they're generally lovely people. So yeah, there was a lot of like ability to listen and really the desire to learn, which I think was a common ground for everybody, because obviously everyone was already a yoga teacher, but this is
Yeah,
new. This was new, so it was yeah, it was very welcoming place, and I never felt not at ease in the group, and we had enough space to ask questions, to
yeah.
discuss things, and to practice as well. So yeah, it was just very well structured, and everyone was lovely in the group. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think you're right that people who are drawn to this training often just have, a level of perhaps already emotional intelligence and empathy. Like there's something, because it's not an immediately obvious or glamorous part of yoga to move into.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, absolutely. There's so much push now in doing all sorts of like super cardio fitness yoga, and which is fine, but then this is something completely different. So yeah, it's
Uh,
not for everybody.
no, exactly. So I'm just curious about how different it might have been from your initial teacher training, and did you feel your teaching style in general evolve, or do you find that your yoga for cancer stuff is sort of one thing and then your other classes are very different? Like, what's been the sort of impact on your teaching, do you think?
Yeah. Uh, I don't think they are very interconnected. The two things, in my mind at least, are quite separate when I
Mm-hmm.
teach yoga and when I teach my regular classes. But I do know that some of the themes, for example, that I develop that often like maybe related to the seasons or which particular time of the year we are going through, and so that seep through both into my yoga for cancer and regular classes. Or if I'm working specifically on some areas, for example, I don't know, maybe the chest, I can, I might work on that same theme across all my classes, obviously with the necessary modifications and things.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I think I maybe brought more, or that's my intention, to bring more of the relaxation and restorative practices into my regular classes because I tend to be quite teach quite active classes in my regular ones.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time my students want to lie down or
Yes, I think life is just sort of continues to be, you know, the world out there is very intense and stressful, and like it feels like there hasn't been a let up since the pandemic, with economic crises and war and all of these things. And I think, yeah, that combination of maybe working out some of the stress through some physicality, but then this need for deep rest
yeah,
is, it's there across the board. And of course, that's very much part of yoga for cancer as well, is just like the level of fatigue that people deal with, that the deep
yeah,
rest is really useful there. And
yeah.
you are doing like a regular yoga for cancer class now, is that right?
Yes, so there's a yoga studio stroke clinic where they do also acupuncture and massages and talking therapies where I use their space and I've been teaching there for a couple of years. It's not always easy to retain students, I find,
Mm-hmm.
because they either come before they start treatment and then they start treatment and for whatever reason they feel they can't come. They're either too tired or don't have the energy to come anymore, not feeling well enough. And some other times, once they've gone through treatments, then they don't come because they want to go back to normal. And
Yeah.
so they don't feel that a yoga for cancer is relevant to them anymore. Um,
Mm.
but I have had some students that I've had for a long, long time, and they just want to keep coming, which is great because you can then take it into slightly different direction, depending on where someone is. And I'm thinking maybe I could have even more than just one class where I have people that are going actively through treatment or actively through the disease, and people that have had the disease maybe even years ago,
Yeah.
but they're still dealing with some of the aftermath or still feel that they don't want to go to a regular class because for whatever reason, really.
Yeah, I think sometimes this is the thing that maybe people who haven't really been affected by cancer might not be aware of, is it's not just going through the treatment and when the treatment's finished, it's like life goes back to normal. It's like sometimes the treatment changes somebody forever. If there have been, parts of the body removed or changed, then, those things don't grow back. And so you have a lifelong then management of either side effects or trying to prevent issues like lymphedema, or it may be that they've been put into a medical menopause, or the effects of their surgery means that they always have to be careful about something.
Yeah. And
Um,
also psychologically, I think it's very common to feel anxious about potential recurrences. And whenever, there's a scan coming up or a visit coming up, there's that bubbling under the surface fear and anxiety. So just to be able to go somewhere where that's recognized and welcome, and actually where you can develop some techniques if you want, whether it's through breath or other things that I teach that I know a little bit about, which is tapping or some kind of other energy um, related practices where you can, calm yourself down, even if you're just sitting in the waiting room waiting to be called for your scan or your appointment, and and sometimes people keep having those for years and years.
yeah,
So it is, I think it's good. It's a good place to be able to keep coming for that source of resources, really.
yeah, I absolutely agree. And again, it's something that people might not be aware of. Again, psychologically, that long-term impact. And I know I see it, with my own students as well, and with some of my reflexology clients as well, that the scanxiety and the fear of recurrence is very real. And it's more than just, a nagging fear. Like sometimes it can really start to affect people's day-to-day life. Like there's just this, every time they have a weird sensation, every time there's an ache, or I've just been reflecting myself since I've started going back to some gym classes, like how my body feels afterwards. But that if you have something you're worried about and you think, oh, like this pulling sensation I have in my shoulder and my arm, does that mean something? Or like the strange gurgling in your belly, or feeling a bit more tired than normal, or like all of those things.
Your
People are,
mind takes you straight back.
yeah,
Yes,
it's like,
right.
oh, does this mean something? Does this mean I should get it checked out? What if it's come back? And
Yeah.
I think, like you say, creating a space that people can come to, where they, like you were saying, like that they can bring those things and it's welcome and it's understood,
Yeah,
it's
and it's recognized, and it's also, if you move away from just the asana practice and move more into the mindfulness and meditation aspect of yoga, where you recognize those thoughts and don't necessarily engage with them. Okay, I'm having this thought. Is my cancer back? Okay, there's just a thought. I don't need to feed it, and so apply all this knowledge also to when you're not in the class doing the lessons. You are able to remember those skills and develop those skills to help you in your daily life. I think
yes,
that's
and those
really,
things, yeah, are so powerful, aren't they? And this again, moving beyond asana, that although that's very important as part of well-being, the mental emotional side of the support you can give as a specialist teacher, I think, is so invaluable. That's the sort of thing that can be more life-changing in some ways than some of the physical stuff, really. That people can be physically well, but if they're not mentally, emotionally well, then quality of life is very different.
yeah, totally. And to me, that's what yoga really has meant more than anything. I've entered it through the physical practice, and it's invaluable, but it completely changed my relationship to the body. Because when you're a cancer patient, or maybe any patient, there's the idea there's something wrong with the body, there's something broken that needs to be fixed. Whereas through the yoga lens, there is nothing wrong with your body. And actually, one of my motto is love yourself into healing. It's loving your body, it's not hating it, it's not about getting rid of bits which are not working as they should, but it's about recreating an environment for wellness and health to be. So it's not about fixing a body that's gone wrong, but it's recreating a full body, mind, and spirit place within yourself where health can be restored and maintained. So
Oh, that's such a
it's
beautiful approach. I could really feel that when you were speaking and the passion behind it. I think it's a very real thing for you. It's not just a theory. And
yeah.
it's such an important aspect, I think, that it's not just a tick box exercise of doing certain practices. It's like it's the soulfulness behind it and helping people to connect with that in themselves as well. And isn't that much more what yoga is than a series of movements and some breathing ratios? It's like those things are important.
Yes, totally.
But it's that connection sort of with the soul or spirit or whatever word resonates for people. It's like bringing that into the movement and the breath, and that self-love and that self-acceptance and loving the body and getting over through that idea that it's somehow wrong, broken, damaged, it's let you down, it's failed, not good enough.
It's a horrible place to be if you think of yourself like that, and not helpful to get better, which is, you want to be getting better. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So your class is a in-person one. Is
Yes,
that right?
yes, I have done online classes as well. I haven't so much. I mean, I'm open to doing them if someone is remotely unable to.
Yes. But I
There's
just wanted to ask about, I suppose, the relationships between students when you have a group, because it's something that I see in my Maggie's class is the conversations and the cup of tea afterwards, and it's more than the yoga
yes,
in that sense. Is that something you see as well?
absolutely. Yes, it creates immediately the possibility for people to connect, and they would talk about how they feel, knowing that the other person has an understanding and they don't necessarily want to fix it or make it better. But they know. And so it's a place where people exchange information, exchange ideas. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And then it creates a real container for experiences and for people to come in and say, even swear and say, oh, I've just been told I've got to do this and I didn't expect that.
Mm.
And there's no judgment. It's all welcome. And I think it's invaluable that as much as the teaching is the support that the students give each other is amazing.
Yeah, that sort of community support that you get there, and and hopefully if they're all local, that can continue outside of the center as well, or there's the possibility for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the positive ripple effect I think that yoga can have when you look at the holistic way that an impact of cancer can perhaps negatively impact someone's body and emotion and mind and relationships and community and family, that with yoga we can then also have that ripple effect that starts. So it's not just the actual yoga practices that we're doing, but the container that you create, and the relationships that people can build, and the confidence to go back out into the world and maybe start working again. Or I've had people say they hadn't driven for a long time because they'd lost their confidence and they didn't know if they could physically do it or concentrate enough, and actually being able to drive again just opened their life up in a way that they hadn't had for a while. And so these positive ripples that a yoga practice and a yoga class, and I think that's is one of the benefits of doing a specialist class, is that it's not only that the teacher gets it, as everyone else in the room does.
Yeah, exactly that. And sometimes because Brighton is not massive, they might have the same oncologist or, the same Macmillan nurse or whatever. So they can, again, that's another point of relation. And yeah, that's good.
Oh, amazing. So as we're sort of coming to wind up, where can people find you? Do you have
Or
a website or what's the best
I
place for
I used to have one. I wasn't happy with it, so I decided to build another one, which is in the process. So I haven't got an active one at the moment, but there is a page at the your Tree of Life Center website, which is TOL.com, treeoflife.com in Brighton, well, Hove actually. There's a page under my name where it talks a little bit about me and my offering at the class there. And then I am on Facebook and Instagram. So I will share
amazing?
those. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Oh, well, I can really hear the passion in your voice for this work, and I'm sure your students really feel that and benefit from it too.
Yeah.
Um,
The one-to-ones are also really good. I have had a couple of students that have been with me for a long time, and whenever I'm going on holiday and they can't do the class, they're like, "Oh, please come back," because they really feel the personal benefit. And then one to one, you can really spend time in targeting the personal issues of someone, and focus on what it is that they want to improve, which is again something might be a little bit harder to do in a group class. So
Yeah, it's really lovely to offer both, isn't it? Because there's specific benefits from being in a group, and there's specific benefits from that one-on-one, which is really personalized and
yeah,
focused.
yeah, yes, and I love doing both.
Fantastic. Excellent. Oh, well, it's been so lovely to reconnect with you
And you,
today,
Jenny.
and hearing about all this amazing work that you're doing. So, yes, been so lovely to have a chat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for keep teaching more teachers.
Oh, bless you. We'll speak again soon.
Speak
Thanks.
soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.